Hey guys, happy Wednesday, June 20th. I'm at the lovely Citrus Club today, and today is Making a Difference Wednesday. Sometimes we do it on Mondays, but we've had trouble with the connections, so let me know you can hear me or see me if you come on. I tried to tag a bunch of people. We tried this earlier, but it would not work. So let me know you can hear me or see me. Let me know the vocals are good. I think I can see myself, so we're golden. I see a couple people on here already. But I want to make sure you can hear me or see me before I go into my thank you for the thumbs up there. Bob Moylan, hey Bob. My Father's Day edition of this, and I really wanted to do it on, thank you Bob. I really wanted to do Father's Day edition on Monday because Father's Day is such an interesting day for me. It's kind of bittersweet. If you know me, or maybe you don't know the story, but I grew up in a very volatile household, and my father and I were never close. And I think a lot of people, I felt like on Facebook, a lot of people posted their pain about their dads. And believe me, I've been there. I had absolutely no relationship with my father whatsoever. He made it very clear during my childhood that he did not want me or want me around. It was a very uncomfortable place for a kid to be. But what was great about my life, and I really do look back and go, I had a great life, is that there were so many amazing people in my life that took the place of the dad that I didn't have. And it pains me to see, hey Tyler, how you doing, buddy? It pains me to see so much pain on Facebook when people are talking about Father's Day. One of my friends, and I won't name him, he put his arm around basically a blank nothing and said, gee, Dad, thanks for being there for me the entire time. And I understand that pain because I did not have that. I had no parental support my entire life. Wyatt, I'm not calling you Daddy. I had no parental support whatsoever almost my entire life. And so there had to be people, in my opinion, I feel like it was people that God put there to help me, that were substitutes, for lack of a better word. I mean, obviously I have a faith in God, and I've always had a faith, but I believe that I had people surrounding me, angels that surrounded me for a very long time, because the situation I grew up in was physically and emotionally abusive. It was a terrible, terrible house to live in. I survived it. My brother, unfortunately, God bless him, I don't think he ever graduated from that, but I think a lot of us go through that. A lot of us feel this pain, and I saw it so much. Hey, Boris, on Father's Day when I saw the post. So I thought it would be a good idea for me to show my gratitude to the people that helped me as I was growing up. So obviously I have to give some kudos to my family. So my grandfathers, both grandfathers, and I was blessed enough to grow up with all four of my grandfathers. Both grandfathers were incredibly intuitive as far as the abuse and the negativity that was going on in my household, so they were very kind to me. And I don't mean just in a loving grandfather way. I mean they were so good to me. That's where I first felt the first positive male love was from my grandfathers on both sides. And I want to give them kudos for that, because one of them, it was their son that was being, my father that was being horrible. And so it was a very different time back then. It was the late 60s, mid 60s. But they still they took up for me. They made sure that I felt like I was loved, because at the time I didn't feel that way at all. I remember at a very early age feeling like I was a complete outsider. And that had a lot to do with the parental environment, the home environment I was in. So I want to give kudos to my grandfathers. And then I tagged my cousin Scott in this, not because he was part of it, but his mom, my aunt, was absolutely amazing to me. And I know as a woman, she stepped in and she took so much crap for sticking up for me with my father, who was her brother. And that took a lot of guts for her to do that. Because remember, back in the 60s, the abuse was kind of shoved under the table and under the carpet, and people didn't talk about it, and people really didn't stand up for children. But I can tell you that my aunt, Scott's mom, was amazing to me, and it was a safe place. And I think as a child, you need a safe place. So all of those people out there who were talking about being fatherless during their lives, and they were kind of bittersweet like I was, and kind of had a weird feeling about Father's Day, that's where it comes from. So you don't feel safe. You don't feel safe growing up. So my grandfathers and my aunt were incredibly awesome to me, and it was the one place where I felt good. I felt like I could be okay. I felt like I wasn't going to get hit or beat or punched or bruised or whatever it was that I went through, which is a whole nother story. But I tell you that that family was a godsend to me in the beginning. So I tagged my cousin Scott in that. Gene Heater's the next one. Gene Heater might not be on here right now, but Gene Heater was my 3rd grade teacher. I lived in Middletown, New York, which is Orange County, New York, just over the border of New Jersey. And she saw something in me early on and was incredibly protective of me. And I remember thinking it as a child. I was pretty much an intuitive child back then too. I don't know what's happened, but I felt that love from her. And it wasn't this affectionate love. It was, which she was affectionate, but it was this, look, you can do whatever you have to do, and I'm going to have your back. And I felt like she went out of her way to make sure that I felt good about myself, because there was no going home to feeling good about yourself. When I went home, I was either beat, hit, or told all sorts of terrible things. And I'm sharing this with you, not in a cold way, but right now I'm, in my upper 30s, and so I can talk about this stuff and not cry. I remember there were many days where I couldn't. So Gene Heater, I love you to death. I'm still in touch with my 3rd grade teacher. What does that say? She impacted me, and I remember that, and I know you guys have teachers and mentors that you also were impacted by. Thank them. Just reach out to them. If they're still alive, and Jean's young, she was young then, thank them, because I think that it's so important to what they did, and she took a risk on me, and I will never forget it. 3rd grade, 4th grade, Middletown, New York, Chorley Middle School, or Chorley Elementary School. Bill McVicker. So I tagged Bill's son, Bill, in my post. Bill McVicker was my Sunday school teacher at the Presbyterian church that I had to, at 9 years old, find a ride to on my own because my parents wouldn't take me. And I had to go to by myself because I had such a faith, thank God. And Bill McVicker took me under his wing. And Bill has a large family. God rest his soul, he's passed. But he gave me my first Bible. He wrote it. I still have that Bible. So Bill McVicker, the son, if you watch this, I want you to know I still have the Bible and the passage that your dad wrote in there. But I felt safe there. Again, when you are growing up, when you're not feeling safe, when you don't feel good about yourself, when you go to an environment where you're constantly put down, you look for people who are going to be good to you. And Bill was put in my life. I remember I loved going to Sunday school. I went twice a week, Wednesday nights and Sundays. And I had to find a ride. My parents weren't going to bring me. So Bill McVicker made sure that he arranged that. And he was a simple, wonderful, loving man that taught Sunday school. And I will never forget the love. It was a lot of love, and I needed that. And he was a dad. And I tell you, as a parent, as a human being, you recognize when there's a child in need, and I was super in need of anything that was positive in my life that I could get out of. So he made sure I was at Sunday school Wednesdays and Sunday. And any other events I needed, he made sure that I could go. So I love him for that, and I appreciate it. Sandy Hudson was originally my junior high gifted teacher when we used to have gifted classes. I don't know how I got in it either, so don't question me. But Sandy Hudson was the first teacher who saw in me that I was more than this super shy kid who didn't want to talk to anybody. Why would I talk to anybody? Because every time I looked somebody in the eye, I got hit or punched. That was at home. So Sandy Hudson realized that I had some intellect and some social skills, and she took me under her wing, and I was with her at my middle school and then in high school. And she was so impactful in my high school years. When I was trying to decide where to go to college because there was nobody to talk to about college or how I would pay for college because my parents were completely absentee. Sandy helped me. She helped me through the process. You understand, when you have nothing, when you come from nothing, anybody who is willing to help you, that is such a blessing. So think about the people that you could help. Think about that kid you could help. She just gave me advice. We have been lifelong friends. I graduated 35 years ago, and she still looks as young as she did back in 1983. But I want to tell you, I will never forget her because of the love that she showed me and the fact that she believed in me, and that's so important. Kim Bowers is exactly the same. Kim Bowers. So Kim Bowers was my student council teacher, for lack of a better word, at Colonial High School back in the day. And she took me under her wing as well. There was no reason for me to be on student council. I don't know why she chose me or picked me, but here's what she did for me. Not only did she teach me so much when she was our student council teacher, but she pointed me in a trajectory to learn about Sigma Chi, which is my fraternity at UCF. And once I decided to go to UCF, she knew that that was a good place for me because Sigma Chi has a lot of principles, tons of principles that I also adhere to. I try to live my life by. But Kim Bowers, you went out on a limb for me, and I love you for that, and I appreciate you so much. And that changed the trajectory of my life. Her introducing me to her husband, Todd Bowers, who is a Sigma Chi, and to Sigma Chi in general, changed my entire life. And I want to talk about, I'm going to skip a little bit, but John Rankin and Joe Hartman. John Rankin and Joe Hartman were alumni members at the time when I joined Sigma Chi. And remember, I'm still going through life with no parental units. I've got nothing. I am on my own. I can't even imagine my kids at my age being on their own. And it's not because they couldn't do it, but why would they have to do it? It's a very lonely place to be. I mean, I'm 50-something. How difficult it is to maneuver through my life at 50-something. Can you imagine at 18 when you've had absolutely zero support behind you other than the wonderful mentors I talked about, and you're trying to figure out how to go to college, maneuver through college, try to figure out your life? Well, John Rankin and Joe Hartman, who are alumni of the Sigma Chi chapter at UCF, were there for me, fatherly to me, older brotherly to me, took me under their wing, helped me get involved in Sigma Chi, and I so appreciate that because I obviously didn't have family. So a big brother to me, that was huge, that was new. Family to me was kind of new, other than my grandparents and my aunt. I want to tell you, that was so life-changing for me, and so Sigma Chi has become such an important part of my life. I want to talk about Howard Edington really quick to give him some kudos. So Howard Edington was the head pastor, senior pastor at First Presbyterian. And when I was going through a really big discovery in my life, I wanted to know how I could justify the fact that I could not get along with my parents. My parents weren't there for me. There was no way to have a relationship with them, and yet still adhere to the tenets of the Bible. So, thou shalt honor their father and mother. Well, I didn't want to honor anybody. I didn't. There was no reason for me to honor anybody. There wasn't a relationship. It was a negative relationship. And I didn't want to do it, but I had this crazy new kind of Christian guilt. And I thought, why am I not, how can I honor my parents? And Howard Edington wrote a letter, this is way before email, and said to me, Ted, the way that you honor them is honor them as the vessel that God chose to bring you into the world. And I swear to God, that was a light bulb that went on, a switch, and it was so healing for me because the guilt was killing me. I'm like, how am I going to completely ignore this one commandment? And Howard Edington, I love you to this day for that, and we do miss you here. Then I got to college. So, all right, college. We talked about Joe Hartman and John Rankin. But I get to college, and remember, I'm still a mess. Aren't we still a mess? I haven't had any therapy. I've got nothing going on. I've just got this abusive background. I'm doing my best. I've been blessed. I've got some great family. I've got amazing friends. But that doesn't heal the inner kid, the inner boy that's going on in my life right now. So I happened to be introduced to Pete Fisher. Pete Fisher saved my life. I'm 100% sure of it. Because Pete Fisher was the director of peer advisement at UCF, and I was super involved as Sigma Chi, president of Sigma Chi, involved in IFC. I'm doing all this cool stuff. I'm going to all these parties. I'm having a great time for the first time in my life, really. And I happened to join peer advisement, and Pete Fisher was the director of peer advisement, and I began a 5-year counseling session with him. 5 years I went to him. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think I could have been the dad that I am today, the friend, the husband, the person, because he was able to help me redirect all that. He was a loving, kind, amazing man who was taken too soon. And he used to, all he did was show unconditional love. And if there's any peer advisors on here, anybody who watches the show later, you all will give testimony to the fact that Pete Fisher was 100% one of the most giving, selfless people I've ever met in my entire life. And he was my oldest daughter's godfather. Just a sad loss there. But I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for him. I don't think I could have carried on a relationship. I don't think that I could have been a parent if I hadn't had the love from him. And Jimmie Ferrell's the same way. Jimmie Ferrell, even though I wasn't on an orientation team, Jimmie Ferrell was so important to me. We used to have one-on-one meetings that I feel like were very rendezvous secretive, right? But he was so good to me, and he was so loving to me. And I don't know what I would have done without the two of them in college. So of course I get married. Stacy puts up with me. She's known me for, I don't know, a million years. And she decides to marry me. And then for the very first time in my life, the very first time, I have a father. My father-in-law, Bill Poorbaugh, Stacy's dad. And I get choked up about this because he was the first man to believe in me. Like really believe in my business sense, my prowess. He was a loving, kind man. And I loved the fact that I could call him Dad. First person I've ever felt comfortable calling Dad. For those of you who have dads, that's why these posts on Facebook on Father's Day can be so difficult for those of us who haven't had a dad. Because I don't like celebrating it for my dad. I like being a dad and I love celebrating it. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt my heart when I have to say those words. It does. Still to this day. It's not that I wanted to have a relationship with that individual. I miss the idea of having a father, of growing up with a father, of growing up with somebody who I was close to, who had my back, who supported me and loved me. And I did not grow up with that. So when Bill Poorbaugh came into my life, he changed it. He changed the trajectory of my life again. He believed in me. He took me out of social services, which is what I had my master's degree in, and put me into insurance and sales, and completely changed the way that I thought. Because I always had the talent for it, but nobody ever believed in me. And my father-in-law, my dad, Bill Poorbaugh, did. And I love him and I miss him. And of course, before I finish up Father's Day, how can you celebrate Father's Day without talking about your kids? So I tagged all of them. And here's the thing that I talk about, and I want to talk about more in depth at another time. But when my first child was born, and each subsequent child, I have 3, when they were born, it healed me. It turned a light switch on in me that I didn't know existed. Because when you want to give your children everything that you don't have or didn't have, you want to love them in a way that you weren't loved. You want to treat them in a way you weren't treated. And I decided as a parent, and Stacy and I talked about this, that no child of mine would be hit in any way, shape, or form. None of my children were ever hit, never spanked, nothing like that. And my children have grown up to be amazing, wonderful, beautiful people. Still with issues, come on. They have me and Stacy as parents, but they are wonderful, amazing human beings. They're not perfect, but they're perfect to me. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I'd be. That teaches you to have unconditional love that you've never had before, for me personally. And so when Courtney was born and they put her in my arms, I remember thinking, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do in my life. This is what it feels like to love somebody unconditionally. And it changed my whole trajectory. Again, back to that, because mine have changed a million times over. But I love my children. They got me great gifts, and I appreciate you guys. And I wouldn't be able to celebrate Father's Day without you. It would be a very lonely time for me. But they are amazing, and I'm blessed to have them, and I thank them and Stacy for making my Father's Day awesome. So I want to switch to more gratitude for last week. Gert Garman came on the show. Gert, I love you. Out of nowhere, I said, we've got to do a Pulse show, and she said, of course, because it was on June 12th, and so she said, yes, let's do a Pulse show, and it was very emotional. She was emotional. You gave me a rock, Gert. You made me cry, and I cried later when I pulled it out of my pocket, but I appreciate you just being willing to be there for me and coming on the show and talking about Pulse, because I think we need to continue to talk about it, and never forget. Tyler Brassil was on. Brassil. Hi, Tyler Brassil. Tyler came on, right? So he's been such a supporter of the show, and I invited him on the show, and it was wonderful. He was engaging and lovely, and this is kind of a big-wig guy, and I appreciate the fact that he came on the show, opened himself up, pretty much has been an open book since I've known him, but I got to know him so well, and I really appreciate the fact that you were honest and truly open that day, and I love what you're doing, and I appreciate your friendship, Tyler, very much. Tom Rebman came on the show, the homeless teacher. Listen, you can't get much more raw and gritty than Tom Rebman. If you're going to sit outside for 30 days and be homeless, and then talk about how it impacted your marriage, your health, I love you too, Tyler. Your health, your love, everything that you're doing. Tom Rebman was impacted, PTSD included, by the fact that he took the risk because he believes so much in doing something more for the homeless cause and what's going on. And I love you for that, Tom. I appreciate you coming on. You're just such a sincere guy. Thank you for helping me with some of those veterans issues. And I think what you're doing is amazing, and it is a blessing to know you, and I appreciate you. Of course, Boris. Boris, I love you. Boris came on the show. He brought Dr. Carmen McGuinness, who I also love and appreciate. They came on the show. They talked about the art of reading art. And so I'm such an art proponent. It doesn't matter what art you're in, music, art, sculpture, writing, poetry, you name it. I'm into it. I love it. But Boris has a gallery and has a passion. And what they did, what Boris and Dr. McGuinness are doing apparently is very controversial in the art field. And I just wanted, when he came to me, I'm like, yes, let's get it out there. But Boris is so supportive. He always tries to introduce me to people. He always wants to bring guests on the show. And I love you for that, Boris. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate what you're doing in our community. And I love the introductions. So, love you to death. Kaitlyn Wong. So Kaitlyn is my intern / right-hand person. She's the one that does the websites. And I've thanked her a million times. But she put up with me last week when I had to have 45 different changes to every flyer. We're putting together all these flyers for sponsorships, which are coming out hopefully later this week or early next week. And she just does it. She just goes for it. She doesn't complain to me. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't want to kill me. And I appreciate that. How often do you find an intern / worker / friend that will just go above and beyond and just do it? She doesn't question anything. Michelle. So Michelle came to me with an idea, and I can't announce it right now. But Michelle has always believed in everything I've done. And Michelle owns Downtown Paper, or is the curator, for lack of a better word. And they did an interview on me for the paper, talking about me being a storyteller. But she's always reaching out to me with creative ideas. Ted, what else can we do? What can we do in our community? And I love you for that, and I thank you for thinking of me while you're doing that. And Tony Boner. Tony comes on the show all the time and tells me how wonderful I am. How can I not thank you, Tony? You are a godly man, an amazing man, a great family man, and an awesome friend to me. And here's what you guys should know. Tony Boner and I probably knew each other for all of a few months here in Orlando. And then he moved to, I think, Atlanta or Georgia. The connection was that good, and we both worked on the friendship that much that we were able to continue the relationship, and it is a positive, wonderful relationship. Don't give up on your relationships just because people move. Work on them. And Tony, I just appreciate it. You always come on and say the most amazing things about me and my guests, and I love you for that. Diane Bourne. So Diane Bourne came on. Diane is truly one of our biggest supporters of the TED Show, and I love you for that, Diane. And she came on when Boris and Carmen were on the show, and she sat in the audience. She's amazing. She just wants to introduce people. She wants to get people's words out. She wants to introduce people to the really cool people we have in town. And I appreciate that about you, Diane. So 2 late entries. Tom Capone came up to me today. Tom and I are friends, Citrus Club, great guy, and came up. I know I said Boris, I'm sorry. Boris and Carmen and Diane. It's the D word, I can't help it. So Tom Capone came up today out of nowhere and said, thank you for the happy birthday wish. Well, I always wish people happy birthday. I don't do it on your wall because I feel like that's so disingenuous. That's my opinion. If you do it, no judgment. But I like to message people. I like to give them a personal message. So Tom said, you're such a genuine person, and that's a rarity, and I want to thank you for that. Well, I mean, I almost cried, Tom, just so you know, because that's the kind of gratitude we need to express to people. We need to tell people how we feel, because even me, who's the big gratitude guy and has a show once a week about gratitude, that moved me. It's inspirational. That is such a big thing because that made a difference to him, and that's what this is all about. So I appreciate that, Tom, very much. He didn't have to come up and tell me that. He could have been like the other 99% who don't say anything, which is fine, no judgment. But he didn't. He chose to come up and say thank you and then make a very strong compliment of me, and I appreciate that. And then, of course, Joe Tags. Joe Tags is here for me. I am the gratitude guy, Boris. Joe Tags, seriously, we are partners on a million different levels, and you're going to see so much more of him in Central Florida. But I want to thank him again on the show, because every time I have an idea, Joe just literally picks up the phone and makes sure it gets done. There's no question. Like, we're both in the marketing world, but the great thing about it is Joe just makes it happen, and he doesn't question me. He just goes, you know what, that's a great idea, and then moves with it and gets it done. And I appreciate that, because what does that show me? Friendship, trust, and he believes in what I'm doing, and he believes that I can deliver, and I appreciate that so much, Joe. Look, I love you guys so much. Thanks for sticking on the show. A lot going on. You know I like to thank everybody. You should do the same thing. If you haven't thanked somebody for what they've done, hey, Brian, thank them. If they've sent you a message, if they checked in on you, if they've given you, I don't know, bought you a drink, or I don't care what it is, show gratitude in every single thing that you do. Hey, John, everything you do, show gratitude, give people kudos. I promise you, the world, the universe, God, whatever your beliefs are, it's going to come back to you 100-fold. So I love you guys. I will not see you tomorrow, but I will see you Friday. All right? Thank you. Love you.